You can, because we're trying some new technology here at Hayters TV. We're trying to bring you new stuff. Old guys bring you cutting edge technology. It's not as easy.
What could go wrong?
Pretty much everything so far. I was just in the middle of going through a very lovely story about my childhood. I was born within walking distance of Highbury as it was then, and now even a little bit 100 yards closer to the Emirates Stadium, or the Arsenal Stadium as it's officially known. Or I never know what it is even bloody known these days. But yeah, so I grew up on the stories of the 1971 double winning team. And in a way, that should be my first North London derby. I didn't go to the match, but Arsenal, of course, won the league at White Hart Lane in 1971, 1-0, Ray Kennedy header. My granddad always used to tell me about that game. Like many, many thousands of Arsenal fans, was down at White Hart Lane at lunchtime for an evening game. Tickets were a different sort of system in those days. They're all queuing outside the game. As soon as the gates open, they're all charging in to get into the Tottenham ground, and they're all trampling over each other. He, like many thousand others, didn't get into the match. He didn't see the match and was just standing outside listening on the radio in a pub, waiting to see what happened. Of course, Ray Kennedy scored. They won the cup and then won the league and went on to win the double. During the 70s, of course, there's players like my hero, Liam Brady, scoring in the 5-0 win at White Hart Lane. One of the first matches I remember going to there as a young supporter was when Tottenham beat Arsenal 5-0 and George Wood was in goal. That was a pretty miserable day for me and my mate Peter. And but it's always been, you know, when the fixtures come out, if you're an Arsenal fan or a Tottenham fan, the first game you always look for is the North London derby. And it used to always be Boxing Day or New Year's Day or some sort of holiday day. And then there's all the violence in the 70s and 80s. They've tried to sort of make it times where it's a bit less dramatic, bit less drinking time.
Well, listen,
I love it.
Before we get into all of that, let's go to what's going to happen on this Sunday.
Okay.
Because I mean, if you missed the start of the stream, and it sounds like a few of you did because we had technical issues. I'm Gerry Cox. This is Nick Callow. We run Hayters TV, but we've got a team of people around the country, some bright young things, who are covering all the press conferences, bringing you the news, the stuff you see on Hayters TV across all our platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram,
Podcasts, yeah.
And then all the future channels that are going to come up, we're going to be on those.
Yeah, X.
So we've had
Web.
Dan down at Tottenham today. We've had James at Arsenal, as well as Nazira at Liverpool and Stan at Manchester City and the rest. Team news coming out. What's the big team news?
Well, yeah, so James is, and I'm sure all the loyal subscribers to Hayters have already seen Mikel Arteta talking on the press conference there. There's another one going up 10:30 tonight. That's the embargo section. But the main team news coming out of the press conference from London Colney, or the Sober Realty Training Centre today, was that Jurriën Timber came through unscathed in his first 45 minutes since the first day of the season. He played 45 minutes away to Blackburn in the under-23. He scored an amazing goal for not just a defender, but for any player. Technically is available. Mikel, characteristic, would say he doesn't know whether he's going to play him or start him. I think he might put him on the bench. There's no way. Bear in mind, Arsenal just coming off a 5-0, could have been 10-0 thrashing of Chelsea. There's no player on there you really would like to drop or rest even, because they look as fit as anything. Thomas Partey coming back into the side. He could be key for me, I think, Thomas Partey, because he's missed some of these games at Tottenham in recent years. He's as fit as they come. He'll be ready. I think it'll be an unchanged lineup, starting lineup. Would not surprise me if he goes for Timber on the bench, though.
Okay, so if Timber comes on, makes his debut, or even, let's say, starts as a defender, could he score a goal as spectacular as that one Danny Rose scored 5 minutes into his debut?
Why not?
That'd be fantastic.
He scored an even better one on Monday night, so yeah.
So the team news at Tottenham is Udogie, Destiny Udogie.
Oh yeah, no, that's a big blow for Tottenham, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we knew this last week, but he's out for the season. He's going to miss Euros, which is
that's
a big blow for
rough,
Italy as well. And he's been a real success story this season. He's been he came in, had a season back on loan in Italy last year, but came into the Premier League for the first time this year and just hit the ground running for a young guy, 20, now 21, I think.
I guess he's the equivalent of Timber in a way, isn't he? In sort of a young, relatively unknown sort of versatile defender.
This is part of the thing with Spurs. You've got Mickey van der Ven was an unknown quantity. He's come in and been sensational this season, apart from obviously had his injury. Pedro Porro, who came in last the transfer window before in January, but he really came into his own this season. He's just back, so he missed a game or two, but he's back from injury.
So he'll play on
He'll
Sunday.
play, absolutely.
Right.
He'll start.
Just going to check some comments. Where are you going there?
So it's the only, as I say, Udogi's main one. Richarlison's back again. Not sure he goes straight in because this is, part of Tottenham's problem is who's filling the void left by Harry Kane. They've still scored plenty of goals. They had a really good start to the season, but you'd have to say they haven't filled that number 9 shirt yet, and that may be something they're going to address in the
But
summer.
do they need to? I mean, Arsenal play without a striker, have done all season. Tottenham scored a load of goals early on, didn't they?
Arsenal were top of the table, so Spurs are struggling to get into the Champions League. And so many of those games, I mean, I see them a lot. If they'd have scored, if they'd have just taken more of their chances, they'd comfortably be, they'd be contending with Arsenal, City, and Liverpool probably. So I think that's something they're going to fit. That's a situation they've got to address in the summer, without doubt.
So they're relatively full strength, apart from Udogi.
Yeah, and then it's whether they'll be up for it. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. But obviously, their last result was a 5-0 away at Newcastle, a defeat that really hurt.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, exactly. So Tottenham are incredibly inconsistent. They can put on these great performances, go to Villa and win 4-0. Their record against the traditional, the top 3 at the moment and the top 4 is pretty good. Yeah. Only Villa have beaten them. City they've drawn with United and beaten United, obviously not top 4 now. Liverpool they've beaten, yet to play. Arsenal they drew away, yet to play. So their record up there with the top 4 is not bad at all. It's very good, but they are an amazingly inconsistent side. Yeah. So you don't quite know who's going to turn up, but you do know it's the big derby. Yeah. And you hope the players are really geared up for it.
And there's a reason for this cliche is that form goes out the window for derbies, and especially this one between Arsenal and Tottenham. I always used to, as a younger sort of fan, dread Arsenal playing well going to the derby because I thought, it's all going to go wrong for the big match at Highbury, Emirates or White Hart Lane. I think really, if we're looking at this match, it's without doubt Arsenal are the form team.
Yeah.
And they've got fit players, they've got players coming back, they've got players playing at the top of their game. But against that, only a fool would predict the future. And that atmosphere at that new ground is pretty intense. And although Arsenal have got enough experienced players to handle that, it only needs Tottenham to score an early goal, player to get sent off, an injury or foul or something, and the form book could go out the window. Yeah. There's another little cliche that we don't tend to deal with at Hayters TV, but I'm going to throw it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to 2 years ago, it was a sort of must-win for Arsenal. That could have guaranteed Champions League football.
Oh, yeah, much. Yeah. That was the one when Rob Holding got sent off and Son was up to his dirty tricks that night day, I remember.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, Spurs blew Arsenal away that day, and that then led to Arsenal falling away and Spurs claiming that 4th Champions League spot. And then last season, obviously Arsenal did win, much earlier in the season.
Yeah.
They did win. But again, you look at Arsenal and the way they sort of fell away at the end of the season. They were in box position, pole position going into April. I think they were 8 points clear of City, and they had 9 games to go. And if they won them, or won most of them, they won the league, and they only won 3 of the last 9. So they really fell away.
Look
City.
how much he loves that.
No, I'm just saying. Arsenal, and I've been on podcasts before talking about
Must be true.
Arsenal fell away, and the question is, have they got the mentality to do it this time? And a couple of weeks ago, you were thinking, well, it's happening again, isn't it? They went out in the Champions League and then lost at Villa, beat them at home. And you think, are they wobbling? But they've come back with 2 strong results.
2 strong results. Away at Wolves, home to Chelsea. No wobble there at all. I think they, mentally, they've got it. They've got that strength. It doesn't mean to say they're going to win the match on Sunday. They could win against Tottenham. They could win against Bournemouth. They could win against Man United and Everton, and City still win the league.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal can win all their games, but it means nothing if City win all their games. But obviously they've got to play. Yeah. Both of them play Spurs, which makes it quite interesting.
What it does mean, though, is that they are a stronger team than last season. They're a better team than last season, and they will be even better next season because they'll strengthen again, and they're getting better. And I was at that match on Tuesday night against Chelsea, and I was at the Wolves game, I was at the Bayern Munich. That's what I do for a living, covering these Arsenal games. And the Arsenal fans, for the last 2 or 3 years under Mikel Arteta, have loved every single minute of it. And they're just having fun. It's just, they're there for the ride. They're having fun. That's what Mikel Arteta's thing is. Enjoy it. Don't worry about it. Don't get stressed. It's a football match. You might win. You might lose. We're playing great football. We might, just enjoy it.
Do you think he says that to the players at half time, though?
Yeah, well, we've seen it. He says, "Fucking enjoy it," every time. Go out there, boys, and do your business. I think he does more or less.
But after a defeat, what's he like? I mean, we saw.
What, with us or with the players?
No, with Arsenal, with the players. Yeah.
Oh, he's pretty. He's pretty balanced with them. He's very emotional himself, but he doesn't sort of hit out at his players individually.
No. I'm saying, but I mean, he probably. It's an old cliche. We like cliche. He's throwing teacups around in the dressing room. We've all seen the manager meltdowns afterwards.
He'll kick a.
We all love a manager meltdown on Hayters TV. But no, I'm just wondering what his persona's like. Because I mean, for example, Ange Postecoglou comes across really well, very measured, very balanced. By the time he gets into his press conference with us, he's probably spent half an hour doing the odd interviews and a debrief with the players. And he's pretty measured. You don't see any histrionics from him after a game. But, I mean, I was told this from someone who was outside the dressing room at Newcastle. There were some raised voices going on there. He was letting the players...
There should be, shouldn't there?
5-0 defeat, of course. So, he's a tough guy and he demands the best. So, you do see a different persona that comes into the press room maybe half an hour later than the one that's walked out of the dressing room after a big defeat.
Well, the only one that Arteta's really lost it this season post-match was the Newcastle away game when there were some poor decisions against him, but he allowed his emotions to get the better of him that day. When Tottenham played the next game, Postecoglou got booked for his histrionics on the touchline. Arteta has not been booked since then at all. He's sort of got that out of his system. He was very, very down after the Aston Villa game, but not angry, just flat, really. And in his press conference today, he just looks reborn at the moment. He looks really up for it. He sort of was put on a bit of a front after the Villa defeat, after the Bayern game, saying that we've still got a lot to play for. Come on, let's seize the opportunity. And it felt a little bit hollow, but he's actually backed it up with the way they played against Wolves and the way they played against Chelsea. And he'll be spending a lot of the time that he is with the players between now and 2 o'clock on Sunday, just trying to keep the lid on it a bit. I think keep them calm so they don't go in there a bit overexcited, because the atmosphere is going to be fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean that's the other thing, is it? Don't play the atmosphere, play the game.
Yeah.
Will it mean that Tottenham are sort of in a way nothing to lose from this game?
Well,
because Arsenal have got so much riding on it. Tottenham for them is the biggest thing is obviously the Champions League qualification. But Postecoglou's made this point over and over again.
He said he doesn't care about Champions League.
No, he didn't. He didn't say that at all. What he said was just getting in the Champions League, if you're not making progress, isn't a result for him. He wants to see progress. So he said even if they come 5th, but they're making progress, he'll be happy. If they come 4th, but they're not going anywhere, he won't be happy with that. So it's not about...
It's quite hard to understand that.
No, it isn't. He's in his first year as a manager, and there's half the team are new players.
Yeah.
It's very much, how do you get from A to B and then C and then D? And you look at Arteta, his first 2 seasons finished, 8th?
Yeah.
But it was always about trust the process. This is a thing. So this is what Postecoglou's saying. He's just come in. He's building a team. He wants to see how far they can go. Someone said, "Would you be, do you consider yourself fifth? If you've been asked, this was today. If you'd been asked at the start of the season, would you be happy being 5th place at this stage?" He'd have said, "No. We aim higher. But it's all about, are we making progress?" And so it's not whether they're in the Champions League or not is a result, or a trophy, or any sort of major success. For him, success is, will we go into next season in a strong position than we started this season? And from his point of view, there's been a lot of positives, but you can also see the weaknesses at Spurs, the inconsistency, probably the squad depth. Certainly they were on that fantastic run, weren't they, at the start of the season?
Yeah.
10 games unbeaten, 8 wins, and then Chelsea. Again, a bit like the Chelsea-Arsenal game the other night at the Emirates. Spurs were cruising. They were 1-0 up after 14 minutes, and you're thinking this could be 4 or 5. And then Romero's sent off, and then Van de Ven gets injured, and then Udogie gets sent off. Yeah. And even then, it was 2-1.
And even then, he kept playing attacking as if he had 11 men on the pitch.
Yeah.
All
and that's his philosophy.
Yeah.
So, the point being, at that stage, Spurs suddenly and Maddison got injured as well. So, from being a team that started on fire and they looked really good, playing great football, once you had 2 or 3 key injuries and suspensions, they went on an awful run then through into December, that they just didn't have the squad depth. So that's something that as I say, talking about the journey, progression, getting better, that's something they've got to address for next year.
Yeah.
Be a stronger, deeper squad, and also with more players who buy into his system. There's probably 1 or 2 players who will be going because they're sort of relics of the past, if you like. They're not players for Postecoglou's future, playing his style of football. So that's the progression, that's the journey. And listen, if they're in the top 4 this time next year, or banging on the door of the top 4, then you'll be sort of in a better position to say, is it working out or not?
It's definitely progress. I mean,
oh yeah,
I think
football on
it's a bit like when Arteta came in. Results weren't changing necessarily in terms of position in the table, but the whole vibe around the club, the whole energy was much more positive. The football was better. The culture was much more, the harmony between the players and the supporters and the directors, all that sort of stuff, which is a bit intangible, but it just felt like Arsenal were coming together as a club, playing better football, more young players, getting rid of the Aubameyang, Ozil, the big egos, which, the Cronkies, love them or loathe them, and I think most people will be nearer to loathing them. They actually have given Edu and Arteta the freedom to run the club and put a culture and a squad together of their own wishes and their own making, and the finances to do that. They spent a hell of a lot of money, Arsenal. They spent a hell of a lot of money getting rid of players, which is maybe what Tottenham will have to continue to do this summer to get more players in.
Most of that has been done in terms of getting rid of the sort of dead wood and all that. They did it all over. They did it when Pochettino arrived. They'd spent the money from Gareth Bale badly. And they, the only one who really came through from that bunch of 7 that they bought was Christian Eriksen, who was a terrific player. So then they got rid of the deadwood, and Pochettino built a new team, and that's the process I think that Postecoglou's going through at the moment. I wouldn't say there's a lot of dead wood to get rid of at the moment. I think they've trimmed the squad and they've changed the squad and they've got some young, hungry players, but there's gaps to fill without doubt to make a better, sort of more balanced squad. So, they're getting there. They're getting there. But
I'm looking at some of the comments here, Gerry, but Dirty Sanchez says he predicts a decent crowd will turn up. Well, I mean,
I think it'll be
60 odd thousand, and us 2 in the press box, they don't count
you'll be
us.
struggling to get a ticket for that.
Mustafa's vlog says North London forever.
Which way?
So I don't know if that's...
Blue or white or red?
Yeah, so, well, we know that he's probably referring to the Arsenal anthem, North London Forever. That's Abfam Woodthrow says Arsenal will beat Spurs 3-0.
That was the same score as 2 years ago, wasn't it, when Tottenham beat Arsenal 3-0?
Yeah, well, let's see if he's right.
Arsenal was scoring a lot of goals.
Yeah.
And,
I think Arsenal, since... Arsenal say they say they blew the league by losing to Aston Villa at home. Really, the bad results have come. The home draw against Tottenham was 2 points dropped. The away defeat, the defeats against Fulham and West Ham in December were really ones that they should not have lost. Everyone said they've got to sign a striker in January. I was saying go and get Ivan Toney. How wrong was I? Since then, they've scored 45, 46 goals since the start of the year, conceded only 5 or 6. They don't need a striker. I mean, I think they will try and sign an out-and-out striker during the summer because there's still games where they're not taking enough chances.
Well, that's what we said about Spurs, isn't it?
Yeah,
Same sort of thing.
And there's some more comments here. I wish I could read that a bit better. Love a pint of beer. That's a good name. Love a pint of beer. SARS a worker. Benzema for me has been poor with his delivery.
Bentancur. Oh, Bissouma.
Benzema, yeah.
Benzema, that's a Bentancur Bissouma matchup, really, isn't it?
I wonder what pint of beer Love a pint of beer would like.
He's already had a pint of beer.
Would you love a pint of beer after this?
I'd love a pint.
What should we go
Friday night, yeah.
Okay.
No, I think,
Anyway,
but
keep
he's
the
making a
comments
good
coming
point.
in.
The midfield's actually a bit of a mess for Spurs at the moment. It's not what it was, Maddison's not quite been the same since he came back from his injury, you know that. Bentancur, similar, he had that bad injury, so he got it just after the World Cup. Bissouma started the season well. Again, he came back from the African Cup of Nations. He had malaria. He hasn't looked the same player. And Sarr is still young. He sort of runs out of legs after about an hour. So getting that midfield balance is right. I mean, if you remember we were both at the game at the Emirates, weren't we, when Maddison and Son combined so well. Son scored 2, Maddison set him up. Maddison was flying at that point. And he's, that's probably the key if you're looking at those partnerships around the pitch or partnerships that create goals. We've heard about Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland, particularly last year at City. That's not been recreated this year because one or other's been injured a lot. But for Spurs, it's definitely Son and Maddison was the partnership, which took over from Kane and Son really. What's the key partnership at Arsenal?
Well, I mean, they've sort of developed quite a few partnerships, which is something that, if you look at Arsenal training, which you can watch the sessions on Hayters TV, and you listen to Arteta talking, and this is why I think the Udogie, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
Injury could be. I mean, who's going to play on the left?
Well, that's the interesting point there is the left back cover. I mean, they've had two players who would be left backs covering there are out for the season. Perisic, he's been out all season. He's just returned now. But and Ryan Sessegnon, who's just had so many injuries that I very much doubt he'll be a Spurs player next season. Ben Davies is a pretty solid number three. He's a good player there, and not to be disrespected, but I do think because Saka, because of the speed and because of these sort of liveliness, you're looking at either one of the centre backs coming across to play left back. So that's either people are talking about Mickey van der Ven, who's obviously as quick as they come, or Dragusin, the Romanian they bought in January, who's also pretty quick, primarily a centre back but can play on the left. So I wouldn't be surprised that Romero, Dragusin and Van der Ven, three centre backs,
all play at left back.
No, they all play in a back four with Porro on the right. Yeah. That's the one we definitely.
I mean, Arsenal have been doing it playing. I mean, Arsenal haven't had. Timber came in to be injured in the first game of the season. Tommy Asu, who's a right back, centre back, been playing left back. Kirill was a centre back, been playing left back. Alexander Zinchenko is not really left back. He's a midfielder, been filling in there. But in terms of partnerships, you've got that axis on the right of Ben White, Martin Odegaard, and Bukayo Saka. They've just played in this sort of little triangle, working the ball down the right wing from the back to the forward, and it has mesmerised many a better defender than Ben Davies this season. And I think that could be a thing that Arsenal will try to exploit. Although when in Bayern Munich, Thomas Tuchel was saying, well, we know what Arsenal will do. It'll be White, Odegaard, Saka. And he set his team up to sort of counter that. And Arsenal were trying to go down the left with Martinelli. Didn't quite work out. So Trossard has come into the team now. He's quite linking up quite well with Havertz. And I should think Tommy Asu will start on Sunday. And we've seen, Declan Rice. I mean, is actually made £105 million look quite a cheap price. Well, I mean, all knew what a good player he was at West Ham. Without doubt, a great leader, best player. Was never going to struggle to fit into the Arsenal sort of setup. He's now become a sort of great attacking force too. And if Thomas Partey's playing as well, then you can look to see Rice getting forward and Havertz. What a great sort of find.
We've all known Arsenal have been lacking that player that Rice is. A really dominant box-to-box midfielder. Since Patrick Vieira. And it was blindingly obvious in the tail end of the Wenger years. If Arsenal just had that player there.
There's not many of them around, though, are there?
Not many around, and they weren't getting them when, Obi Mikel went to Chelsea, didn't he? And those sort of players. But if Arsenal had one then in that period, it could have been very different. But Rice certainly fits the bill.
What a player.
And again, his leadership ability, his leadership qualities. That's maybe the difference. He's a winner. He's won a European trophy as West Ham. I was at West Ham the other night. They're still singing Champions of Europe.
You'll never sing that.
So he's got that winning mentality, leadership mentality. So he's added a lot to that mix from last year. They were young and they, as I said, I think they sort of caved in. I think it was about belief as much as anything else. Physicality, belief, and everything else. Where City, what they're going to do. They won 12 straight games this time last year. And they could win all their games between now and the end of the season. So, that's what you've got to match. And if you show weakness and you lose one and then you get a setback and lose another, and that's what happened to Arsenal last year, isn't it? So, from Arsenal's point of view, what they've got to do is, if they lose one, not let it affect them, not fold, not cave in. And that's all about... That's when it comes down to mentality, and if they learnt from last year, and if they got more mental sort of strength, in the squad.
Well, they do have the strength, and they have learnt. But whether that's enough to get them the title this year or not, only time will tell. I do not know. But what's been a joy covering Arsenal and following Arsenal this time is that they're finally, after 20 years since they won the title, which I know is not as long as 1961, but it's a long time for Arsenal, and it's the longest sort of gap there's ever been. I think Arsenal were going through without a title. They're now back in that conversation. They were in it last season. They'll be in it this season, and they'll be in it next season too. You know, Arteta's not just a fly-by-night sort of guy who's going to come and go. These players aren't going anywhere. They're young. They're signed up on long-term contracts. There'll be more people who want to come in. They've re-established themselves as a Champions League team. They'll be in the Champions League again next season. More players will want to come. They will be in the title conversation again next season. Klopp's gone. Who knows what can happen at Liverpool? Pep, surely they can't win 5 in a row. 4's never been done. So, well, I mean, Arsenal will be in contention. So it's a great time to be an Arsenal reporter, supporter, and whatever happens, I don't know. Sunday, it's a horrible game, and it's horrible to have a North London derby at such a crucial time of the season. Why just have it at the beginning? Like
well, if you think back to 2 years,
I'll
go back to 2 years ago, and that was a classic shoot themselves in the foot from Arsenal because they called it off at the last minute, didn't they? It was going to be in January.
This is your conspiracy theory, isn't it?
No, I'm not. No conspiracy about it at all. But Arsenal called it off very last minute, and we were all prepared to go. And on the Saturday, I think, and on the Sunday, it was Arsenal said, "Oh, we've got too many injuries and COVID cases.
Yeah.
Let's call it off." And Spurs were actually weaker then because they didn't have Son and a couple of other key players. And the game was pushed back to this time of the year, wasn't it? It was late April, maybe early May, and Spurs were back at full strength. And Son ran rings around Holding. And Spurs won 3-0. So that was Arsenal sort of shooting themselves in the foot by having it later in the season, wasn't it? You know?
Well, hindsight tells us that, yeah. But at the time, they obviously felt they had these COVID cases and injuries. They couldn't put out a proper team. And by the letter of the laws, as they were then, weird laws in my opinion, they had every right to call the game off. I think Tottenham called games off for COVID as well, didn't they? Whether they did or should have done or not should have done is another question. Yeah, you're possibly right, but
anyway, what I'm saying is this is all that's all history. That's all history. It has nothing to do with what's going to happen on Sunday. And sometimes you see things like little stats like Everton have gone 18 games since they beat Liverpool at home. You think, well, they were different Everton teams. They were different Liverpool teams.
That was Sean Dyche's first Merseyside derby, wasn't it?
And I mean. Listen, if you're a Spurs fan, you could draw on that one because Everton got an absolute spanking at Chelsea, didn't they? I was at that game, the 6-0 on the Monday night 2 weeks ago, and then they come back and Liverpool needing to win this to keep their title challenge alive, Everton needing to win for other reasons just to keep out the relegation zone, and absolutely murdered.
You know, that was my first reaction to Everton beating Liverpool was not that Liverpool have lost, but God, that's going to get Tottenham going because they are the Tottenham to Everton. Become Tottenham and Liverpool become Arsenal in this fixture, don't they? Because Liverpool the stronger team, Arsenal the stronger team, fighting.
I think they're a bit closer together at the moment, Tottenham and Arsenal, aren't they? Than that. But anyway,
okay, well, yeah, but I mean Everton that played Liverpool off the pitch the other night.
Yeah, and that was more to do with Liverpool not turning up than Everton. I mean, Everton were up for it clearly, and they had their best striker back, Calvert-Lewin, and everything else. But Liverpool just didn't turn up, and you sort of that could be if I was an Arsenal fan, that would be my worry. Is do they freeze or do they, if there's a little setback early on, do they then sort of just get muscled out of the game, So
what was your first time? When you're going back, what were your favourite London derbies? I know you don't want to look back too much, but
blimey,
you must have some great memories of covering matches.
Well, I mean, watching matches, it was all in black and white back in those days. And it was, I think I said it right at the beginning of this, when I grew up in the 60s, it grew around Highbury closely. Spurs were the glamour team. Arsenal hadn't won anything they didn't win anything in the 60s, didn't they? Spurs won the double, won the European trophies and everything. So I can remember those sort of games, and even players would swap clubs. That's almost unheard of now. The Sol Campbell thing was unbelievably controversial.
Yeah.
But back then, Jimmy Robertson came across, didn't he, from Arsenal to Tottenham. Pat Jennings, our good friend Pat.
Yeah. Possibly Arsenal's greatest ever goalkeeper.
Certainly Tottenham's
Tottenham's. How bizarre
One
is
of
that?
the all-time greats, Pat, and great friend.
Willie Young.
Big
Willie.
Not so much missed.
Oh, we love Big Willie.
There wasn't quite the bitter rivalry anyway.
No.
And we'd go, as kids, we'd go to Arsenal 1 week, Spurs the other.
I
support Arsenal. I remember as late as...
Can we clip that bit out, please? Gerry Cox says, I support Arsenal.
I was upset when they lost the what was it, the UEFA Cup final, Cup Winners' Cup final, when Ricks missed a penalty.
So was I.
Valencia.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not always been quite as bitter as that. And, of course, Nick and I, as professional journalists, when we're covering a game, We're completely impartial. You put your club loyalties to one side. He's worked for Tottenham. I've worked for Tottenham. He's worked for Arsenal. I've written for the Arsenal website.
Yeah.
My sister thinks that's astonishing and disgraceful.
So do I.
Nick Callow used to be the voice of Tottenham on the Tottenham Club.
I was.
Listening, you get all the news from Tottenham. From
I
Nick
got
Callow.
sacked though. I got sacked after a North London derby at
right.
White Hart Lane, which Tottenham won 2-1. I used to do the
Billy
updates.
and
I've got no idea. I just remember saying what an extraordinary, unlikely, remarkable win it was for Tottenham. And Irving Scholar was then the chairman, owner, whatever of the club. And he got onto the phone to the commercial boss there, Mike Rollo. The next one he goes, "Who's this Nick Callow we got on the line? Doesn't sound much like a Tottenham fan. We want a Tottenham fan. When we beat Arsenal, we want a Tottenham fan there." And Mike goes, "I'll look into it, boss." And I got the call. Are you a Tottenham fan, Nick? I said, "No, I'm a neutral journalist." He goes, "But are you a Tottenham fan?" I said, "No, I'm not." And it sort of came out that I might have been an Arsenal fan historically, possibly at the same time then. And then you took over doing the Tottenham Club
I
call.
saw my opportunity, rang up. I knew Mike Rollo a little bit, rang him up, said, "I can do that."
That was a great time to be around Tottenham. You had Terry Venables as manager, Gazza, Lineker, Paul Stewart, Paul Walsh, really sort of charismatic players.
Yeah.
I remember interviewing Gary Lineker when he first scored his first goal for Tottenham away to Norwich. I was the only person he would speak to, and all the other journalists got very upset with me, but because I was doing the Tottenham Spurs line thing. Oh, I'm glad that didn't last too long. I tell you, that was quite hard
I enjoyed
work.
it.
I
still wish we used to have tapes with Chaz and Dave.
Oh God, yeah.
And you have these little jingles, and you have to mix
Super
them
Spurs,
together to
Super
put them
Spurs.
together in the programme. And John Motson was our colleague. Wasn't he?
oh,
He used
God,
to do the during the week. He wasn't allowed to do match day commentaries because of his BBC contract. But Motty would do some of it. We'd do some of it, and
You come to some interviews with Terry in the changing rooms and things.
Yeah.
You can walk into the changing rooms then as well. But it's not. I mean, it's not a lifetime ago. It's within our working careers. After the game,
I had a tape.
knock on the door, walk into the changing rooms.
I wish I still had it. Paul Gascoigne, this was after they played Millwall away, last game of the season before the World Cup 1990. And Gazza walked in, I had to go and do an interview with Eric Torsfett. And he said, "Come in the dressing room," because it was, it's a bit lively around the den. Then it was the old den. The old den. Which was even
I did the last ever
lively.
match at the Den. We could do it all day about our old
So
game.
Eric said, "Come in the dressing room." As soon as I got the microphone
Carry on,
out,
I never check the comments.
they were like bang, bang, bang. They had the tins and they were laughing and making a noise. So he said, "Come into the shower block. We'll do it in the shower block. Be quiet." Gazza kept running up to the window, banging on the window, swearing and effing and blinding, knowing we couldn't use any of this. So we sort of made sure, and Eric's going, "Gazza, just go away," in industrial
Norwegian?
Yeah, Norwegian. And Gazza just kept going. I had about 20 minutes on a tape of Gazza effing and blinding, and I wish I still had that tape.
Gazza was great fun to be around.
I saw Gazza the other week.
How was he?
He looks really well. He did a.
When you say really well, I mean in comparison to what he's been like.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's had his ups and downs. He's fallen off the wagon, and he's had some problems, and he knows it, But he did an hour and a half show. It was a Spurs show, the great podcast that's been running for years.
I've never heard it. It sounds great.
And they had a live show in down the road, and Gazza was on for about, as I say, an hour and a half, just telling stories, talking about that great goal, the semi-final in. If you remember that 1991.
Yeah, behind the goal. Yeah, behind the goal for that one.
That would be, for me, if you're looking back on all the Spurs Arsenal games, that's probably the most remarkable game, because Arsenal were overwhelming favourites. They were on their way to doing the double. I think they'd only conceded about 14 goals all season, hadn't they?
Well, in '91 they won the league and only lost one match. That was the almost invincibles Arsenal team.
Yeah.
That's Arsene Wenger behind me, but but of course, so that was a terrible day in Arsenal's history. But they did get their. I mean, no one really remembers Arsenal beating Tottenham in the semi-final when Tony Adams scored.
Later,
the Donkey won the derby.
Yeah, Donkey won the derby.
Because of that Gazza goal is the only one that ever gets shown. They never showed Tony Adams winning the derby in the same match, same semi-final, same significance. I think it's because Tottenham are the underdogs. And it's like a giant killing act that everyone makes a fuss of it. Because when Arsenal, it's like, oh well, of course Arsenal won. I guess that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you remember, I mean, anyone who remembers that era, that game, David Seaman was one of the great goalkeepers. He was England's goalkeeper, Gazza's teammate, and Gazza sends in a free kick for 30 yards or 35 yards.
Maybe 50.
Seaman just gets a hand to it, flaps at it a little bit. I think, have we got Seaman's gloves up there? We've got Jens Lehmann.
We've got Jens Lehmann and Bob Wilson's gloves.
So we've got a few pairs of old gloves up there. But Seaman couldn't get anywhere. He got a hand to it, couldn't stop it. And Gazza went charging over to the bench, and he was telling us this the other night. He said, "I told Venables, He only tried to save it, you know. Didn't do the accent very well. He only tried to save it. But, I mean, that was Gazza. He was just completely audacious, fantastic football.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that would be, what would be your sort of standout moment in Tottenham Arsenal derbies?
God. Well, for me,
I mean, we're talking about 100 or so that we've seen over the years, I think, haven't we?
I mean, I thought, growing up, I wasn't at White Hart Lane when Liam Brady scored that fantastic goal and John Motson's look at that commentary for the 5-0. But I was at White Hart Lane in 2004 when Arsenal won the league for the second time. I referenced the 1971 and won it unbeaten as well. And that was just ridiculous because they were saying, I was in the crowd that day rather than working on the press box because just a bit too, as neutral as I can be, I thought that match was a little bit too big to try and be neutral. I managed to get a ticket outside the ground off a tout, got in, bumped into some mates. I think it was a fake ticket because there was no seat for me. Arsenal did the business, 2-0 up, drew 2-2. Tottenham thought they might have stopped us winning something, but Arsenal knew they'd won the league and they'd told the Arsenal players not to celebrate. Of course, all the Arsenal fans are locked in for ages because it's a dangerous place to go, Tottenham, whether you're an Arsenal fan or any fan, probably. Certainly if you're an Arsenal fan. But then the players came out and they celebrated. They had an inflatable trophy. Ashley Cole, Sol Campbell, Thierry Henry. I can always remember Martin Tyler, who was commentating with Sky, sort of coming around about 45 minutes after the match. And everyone's sort of saying, there's only one, Martin Tyler. And he just put his briefcase down, starts clapping all the Arsenal fans. And he wrote some of those old Arsenal, he's not an Arsenal fan per se, but he'd written some of the old Arsenal history books. But I mean, that was ridiculous. And of course, after about an hour or so after the game, we did get let out. And all the Tottenham fans were still waiting out there to do their bit. I remember sprinting up the road and running up and trying. Luckily, a W3 bus was coming. I was talking to some mates about it the other day.
That was all part of the fun.
They said they ran back into the ground and were in a Tottenham lounge, getting abuse from some fans in there, just trying to look after themselves. But I think the 2004 winning the league at your, the Arsenal fans will be singing it on Sunday, Olé Olé. Winning the league at your main rival's ground is just that's as good as it gets.
So you mentioned Martin Tyler's done a book. I've done a book. I've actually done the official book. This was a few years ago. Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh, it's not in black and white though.
No, it's not even winning anything. It was a pretty dark days for them. It was the 90s.
The Premier League years.
Premier League years. That was an old book. But way before this, Hayters used to do not only the Tottenham Hotspur book.
Oh, I think it might have been
Dennis Signey, who was our great mentor at Hayters and the Football Writers Association, he wrote that one. Reg Hayter used to do the Arsenal.
Reg Hayter, edited. So this is Reg Hayter, up above us, above the English. That's why we're called Hayters, by the way. The Arsenal football book number 5, edited by Reg Hayter. That's Pat Rice, and it looks like Peter Story, Bob Wilson. And Reg was also, of course, Bob Wilson's agent for a while.
And you got that little book there?
We've got a little book.
Soccer, actually, I found this.
Excuse me while I stand up.
Found this at home.
He's an Arsenal supporter, really.
This has got to be the original Panini sticker book. And it's called Bob Wilson's Shredded Wheat Soccer Action. I found this sitting around at home.
In your shredded wheat packet?
In my shredded wheat packet. 1971. And it says, edited by Hayters Sports Agency.
Ooh.
I can't believe it. So our history goes back a long way.
Doesn't it, yeah.
And there's always been Arsenal Spurs in the middle of it.
Oh, hang on. Adrian S. wants a close-up of Reg Hayter.
Come on then.
You're going to get Reg down. Oh, we can't see him. They can't quite see him.
There's Reg. And he is a great man. There's so many journalists started their career at Hayters. It's ridiculous.
That is the great man himself.
He was not just a great football man, but a great cricket man as well. His picture hangs in the Lord's press room, and the PCA, the Professional Cricketers Association, Young Cricketer of the Year award is the Reg Hayter Trophy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Hayters and Reg particularly have this great...
happy. Oh, Adrian's happy. He's giving it a lot of that.
Great heritage in sports reporting and media. And as I say, you walk into any press box, particularly in football, but you find in cricket and rugby and others as well. Hundreds of people have come through the ranks at Hayters over the years. 70 years next year, isn't it?
70 years, yeah. It's the 70th anniversary of Hayters next year.
We haven't been there all that time, have we?
Not quite all of it, but
1987.
longer than I thought I would be, to be honest with you.
And
well, my first season actually covering football as a journalist was the 88-89 season, and I don't know if you can see. Well, there's a picture there of Mickey Thomas up there, and that was the last day, May the 26th. 1989, when Arsenal went to Anfield and won the league, again winning the league at your rivals' can never be repeated. And that was I got sent home. I had to got home from Anfield about 4 a.m. Long story. I ended up at the party with the players of Southgate. Got into work for about 9 o'clock. I couldn't speak at all. I got sent home for not having a strong enough voice to answer the phone. And that was in the George Graham days, of course. And
who did go to Spurs, actually. Players didn't go.
Bloody hell, yeah.
Even the manager went. And he was... I remember he won a trophy with Spurs.
He did.
They won the...
Wasn't he the last manager to win
not the last one, but he won a trophy. And the song had been "Man in the Trench, Man in the Blue Coats." Man in the Overcoats, Blue and White Army. They couldn't actually sing his name.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
But they did start singing "Man in the Overcoats."
Man in the Overcoats, Blue and White Army. What do they sing for Postecoglou? He's big, he's fat.
Big Ange and all that. Yeah,
Big Ange, Blue and White Army.
We're loving Angels instead, isn't it? No, the last man to win a trophy was the Spanish guy, wasn't he?
It's the Spanish guy. Yeah. Get in the comments.
He was only there.
Name the last Tottenham manager to win a trophy.
Yeah.
Come on, Adrian, you must know that.
Been a long time.
What about Lover Pinter? Who's Jam Rock 3R77? That's a good name.
Right. And his comment is, wow.
Yeah, well, are there any more comments? Where are you watching from? Predictions for the game.
So what? Go on.
Okay, well, I'm going to say Arsenal are going to win this game.
Okay.
I mean, they're the best team. They're in form. They won't be fazed by the cauldron of Tottenham Stadium again. You've got the defence is rock solid. You've got William Saliba and Gabriel, the two best centre-backs in the Premier League. You've got goalkeeper is still not as good as he could be possibly. But I just think that, and with Rice and Odegaard and Havertz and Partey, the midfield is rock solid. If they just keep their nerve in the opening minutes, even if they go a goal down, I think Arsenal will win 2-1, maybe 3-1 if they can really get going. I can't see them. They really blew it against Tottenham in the home game. But was that September, wasn't it? They led twice, I think, and threw it away.
But I think over the course of the game, Spurs end up with sort of the better chances. Spurs.
Yeah, I don't
Spurs saw that as points dropped, actually.
Well, so do we. So
and that's the sign of how Spurs have come on.
So you're going to say it's going to be a draw, aren't you?
No, I'll go for a win.
Oh, here we go.
For Arsenal, but no. I don't know. I won't. I actually,
you asked me for a prediction.
I know that's my prerogative to ask you. I'm not giving one. We've had a few. Come on, put them in your. Put
here I saw a little tingle there.
But yeah, I don't know.
No one's putting any scores in.
I think ultimately, as we always say,
one day Ramos, Puds.
One day Ramos. That's
one day my dreams will come true.
Pete Drury, our old friend Pete, who
was he playing that day?
No, but Pete did the famous commentary.
Oh, for that match, did he?
Yeah, he said when Spurs finally won, it was a cup final against Chelsea.
Blackburn?
Chelsea, I was there. Took my kids. And Pete's famous commentary was, one day we'll all be heroes for one day. The David Bowie line. So, I mean, great Pete Drury. Oh. I replaced Pete at Hayters. You worked with him for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah,
I came in
Pete,
and took his job, sort of thing, when he moved into.
Yeah, so when you're listening to Pete Drury on Sky or wherever it is, remember he started out as a Hayters guy in this green, not quite this green, but
not this.
He worked with Reg. Reg helped school Pete, and
if you look back, actually, if you go back into the archives of Hayters TV, you'll see podcasts from last summer, wasn't it? Pete came in.
Yes.
Came in the studio.
Look at the archives
Pete,
on the
talking
channel.
about his old days, starting out. Exactly.
Some great stories from Pete in there. I do know that didn't get enough views from it. I think we should maybe edit it and repost it because
he's one of the great.
There's some great stories from Pete Drury in that. It was just as he was about to start off at Sky Sports.
Yeah, just as he's moving over.
He's doing a great job there, by the way. So we'll probably see him on Sunday. I mean, he's going to have to be
Pete
there.
will be there.
Yeah.
Pete will be there.
We'll be
there.
there.
So who's going to be a hero? One day?
Martin Odegaard.
Go on, quick one. Football of the year.
Martin Odegaard.
At the moment, I'm wavering.
Are you?
I've been thinking for a while, Phil Foden, because I think he's fantastic. He's an exciting player. Mm-hmm. But then I look at Odegaard and think, he's the sort of player I love. I would normally be voting for Kevin De Bruyne, but he's not played enough this year to get my vote.
Yeah.
I just think those creative playmakers, they're the ones that excite me most, not the goal scorers or the goalkeepers or defenders. I just love a creative midfielder. And Odegaard's probably, on a consistent basis, the best in the business at the moment. De Bruyne's just not, he's missed too much of the season.
He's never won it, has he? The Football of the Year,
No,
De Bruyne,
no,
which will be a travesty.
I've voted
I've voted for
for him
De Bruyne
in the
so
last
many
5
times.
years.
Me
He
too.
never wins it. And
God.
you can't say, there have been 2 City players in the last 5 years who've won it, and neither I'd think is better than De Bruyne. But there you go.
So we're both members of the Football Writers Association, which hosts the oldest and most prestigious Football of the Year award, the Football of the Year. And I think the closing date for entries is Tuesday next week.
So listen. I think after the weekend, you're looking at over the course of a year who's been the footballer of the year, but it all comes into focus and you start to get out towards the finishing line.
I think you want to vote for me. I always want to vote for a player who's been influential.
I'm going to vote for a professional.
For me, I want to vote for myself.
You played a bit though, didn't you?
Well, hang on a minute. Are you trying to get me to tell my story about me and Arsene Wenger?
It's the clunkiest link.
It doesn't really look like... So this one, folks, can we see that? I don't know. This is when I had more hair and darker hair.
Yeah, I'll hold it.
You hold it, because we're getting a bit of sun coming into the Soho studios here at Hayters TV. That was with the great Arsene Wenger. He was looking to sign some new strikers, and he actually got the press to come along to try out some new boots for Nike, just thinking there might be some strikers amongst us. We had to play the ball into Arsene and then try and score a goal against the great Graham Stack, who was the Arsenal youth team or reserve team. He was an invincible, actually. Stacky was on the pitch at White Hart Lane when Arsenal won the league in 2004. And at the time, I think my diet and my lifestyle, my refueling...
Off the field problems.
I think at that time I was still smoking. Wenger said to me, there are easier and quicker ways to kill yourself. And so I took his advice and stopped smoking. So thanks for that, Arsene. But he never signed me, and Arsenal still really haven't got a striker of my lack of speed ever since.
Yeah, but you never played with an absolute icon of the game, did you?
I played with Ray Parlour.
There's a team, Ray Parlour, well, yeah.
And Paul Merson.
Bobby Charlton?
Who's he?
Bobby Charlton. There's a team, this is a few years ago. This was in '92. The England media team at the Euros. Bobby Charlton, Gerry Cox, Ron Atkinson. I think there were
he was a player, wasn't he? Yeah, Dave
Jim Rosenthal. Yeah. I think we had Trevor Brooking played, Ray Clements played. We had a few, but that was good fun.
Now I wonder who Adrian S is, because Adrian's made a donation to us. I don't know what that.
Love that.
Wow, the stories and the nostalgia. I'll tell you what, Adrian.
We'll do a special.
We're thinking of going to the pub after this, so if you want to come round, we'll do a one-on-one live show, and maybe we could do that as part of the membership thing that we're going to launch soon.
That we keep talking about.
But we really are going to have the Hayters TV membership, because we need it to help us grow the channel. You need it because you're going to see some really special, exclusive material, some exclusive clips and interviews.
Behind the scenes.
Or maybe it can be like the monthly "Let's go for a pint with Nick and Gerry" prize.
Yeah,
and have some proper nostalgia. Yeah. Don't worry, we'll pay for the beers.
Yeah.
Or you
but
will.
we're always open to your sort of ideas, and if you want to see certain things, we know what works well on Hayters TV, press conferences. Everyone wants to know what Arteta's saying, what Pep's saying, what Pochettino's saying, what Postecoglou's saying, and all that. But we want to create more, and if that means doing more of these live shows with a different audience. As we said earlier, there's a lot of much younger talent in the building than us.
Yeah.
Much younger, about other things as well. Talking about other topics, and then behind the scenes, we want to show you, take you behind the scenes, show you what it's like a typical day in the life covering the match.
Do you know what we could film? We could do a bit of filming at the Tottenham Stadium on Sunday.
Could do.
A pair of us going and getting our press. I'll tell you what, the food at Tottenham.
Our food's good.
2:00 kickoff Sunday. I'll be getting there very early.
It'll be a roast.
To get a
It'll
big
be a roast.
Will it?
Yeah. Sunday lunchtime.
Okay.
They get that right.
Right.
I just spent a week in Jude Bellingham's orbit. I was at Man City, Real Madrid. He did a big press.
Did he mind?
He was
Did
delighted.
he mind you
Delighted
being in his orbit?
And then I was in Madrid for the big Classico, and then it was the Loris Sports Awards, and Jude won the Breakthrough of the Year. But it's another story there. But he's extraordinary. So we'll be doing a Jude Bellingham special before the season, probably before the Euros actually, because we're going out there. We're looking forward to that one. Listen, let us know what you like and what you don't like. Don't be too harsh on us, but any ideas you got, little features. We want to do more documentary style, just a little bit more behind the scenes, bringing out our lives as football journalists, and not just us two, but the younger ones.
There's even more interesting people where we came from. They're not in the room at the moment.
But also, yeah, talking to our pals and all these guys.
Get Pete Drury back in.
Pete Drury back in.
See if we'll line him up on Sunday.
Martin Samuel was one of the great Hayters graduates.
Oh, yeah.
And he wrote a 3-page piece in the Sunday Times magazine when he rejoined them a year or so ago. And it was all about his early days working for Hayters in Fleet Street. And it was just a bygone era, but the lessons you learn, and he repeated this again to some student journalists the other day, the lessons he learned from the old guys at Hayters, which would be us now, he still stands by them. You know, the correct use of grammar and so on, and getting things in perspective. You know, a tragedy is not when your team loses 2-0. It's an earthquake or a humanitarian tragedy. It's just all that sort of perspective you need.
I saw Martin at Wembley on Sunday when I was at the Man United Coventry debacle of a semi-final. And the last piece I read by Martin was about Taylor Swift's new album.
Oh, right.
Which
he likes his music, actually.
Yeah, but not Taylor Swift.
No, he's more dub, isn't he?
He's more into
bit
proper
of Captain
music.
Beefheart.
Yeah, he's got a great taste, very tasty
He always
music.
manages to reference some of these.
People that you've never heard of.
Oh,
I've heard of them. Yeah, but I'm talking about someone else. Obviously, people I've never heard of. Otherwise, I would have.
Taylor Swift.
I would have heard of them. Taylor Swift, though, yeah, it's a bit of an acquired taste. He hasn't acquired it yet, but millions of people have.
Yeah, I think we're babbling now. It's probably time to go.
Oh, blimey. Okay, let's just check one less in the comments. It's still Adrian S.
Pubs are opening now.
Adrian S says, I definitely support any live events or memberships. Well,
Okay.
Adrian,
We'll let
you
you
can be
know.
our
Coming soon.
first member. Brian Warno.
He was a very
That's not
knowledgeable
spelt
man.
right, love a pint of beer, but was a
Very
very good,
close.
knowledgeable man. Yeah, very close.
O-U-G-H.
O-U-G-H, yeah.
But Wooly was everyone knew Wooly.
Oh,
And
do you think love a pint of beer would love a pint of beer? I bet you would.
we put that on our membership thing. We'll have a tier called Love a Pint of Beer.
Well, look.
And winner of each best comment every live gets a pint of beer from us.
Yeah, if they're old enough.
If they're old enough.
Good alcohol, yeah. Or go a pint of something else.
Yeah.
Water, Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Signed Hayters TV shirt. Mugs, cups. Do you want some merch?
They're not mugs. They're punters. No.
Now, how are we going to turn this off?
We just press that button now.
Is there a button there? Is it okay?
Yeah. Listen, it's been
Right,
fun.
so I'm
It's
saying
been
Arsenal are
fun.
going to win on Sunday. You're saying you
I
don't
have no
know.
idea, and none of us really know.
You wouldn't, of course not, no.
We'd all be rich if we knew.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Though, do you know what? I was at the match on. Anyway, I won't.
May the best team win.
May the best team win. Yeah, Gerry, may the best team win. Good luck. We'll see. I hope we're still talking after the game on Sunday. Although not still talking, as in that we haven't stopped since now and then, but just still. Well, we will be because we've seen it all
You'll hear
before.
it. You'll hear it.
Seen this game so many times before. One team will win, one team will lose. There might be a draw, and everyone will get chased home. It's the North London derby. Where's Nate the Great when you need him?